connecting with.
Okay, but then how are you getting internet access?
Okay, through Wi-Fi.
Okay, so you have a modem, right? That's giving
No,
you.
not a modem, just what do they call this thing? Is it wireless router they call them?
Yeah, we call them modems, like the one you get
Okay.
from Smile, MTN, Glow.
Okay, yes,
Yes,
yes.
you always
But
get it.
they are not attached to the system. You
Yes,
connect it through Wi-Fi.
through
Okay.
Wi-Fi. Yes, but so on this level now, they are working on the network layer.
Okay.
They're working on the network layer and they're also representing a switch, but it's different. So where you will see switches come in place, to correct me if I'm wrong, is in most organizations. And if you notice, you can go look at your modem. We have modems that they give us that allows us to plug in network cables. Um, I know we used to have a device. If you notice also, I think in Lagos that they're doing a lot of wireless connections in estates, and then you have like a single provider providing such internet. Even though they give you a modem, there's always a port at the back of that physical device that you can connect to your system. I remember my sister used to do this a lot when she was working because she complained a lot that she needed to access company resources, but doing it over the Wi-Fi wasn't as fast as she wanted. So she needed to use the network port. So it goes into the device and then to her system. So we will see different infrastructures doing it differently. But most organizations, they use the switches because it helps them manage their network and endpoints. But in our homes, we have our small devices. So it's the same thing, but it's just that it's different in its physical form.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay,
I have a question.
okay.
I understand that only organizations or places where you have to use, maybe you have a WAN or a LAN where you have multiple computers, that's when a switch will come into place. If it's just your personal computer rather in the house, you most likely would not need a switch. Or okay, then I want to know that from my understanding of switches, it is supposed to help you switch packets in between computers.
Okay.
So I want to have a clear understanding because I know that recently a lot of routers already come with inbuilt switches. Am I correct? Okay, so like switches, I think switches are going out of, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm just that's just what I think. I'm not very sure. Maybe from what I've read or something, it's confusing information. But I want to know because from what I understood from you answering this question was that a switch is just to I don't even know how to put it now. Okay, it's just to connect you to the internet, right?
Okay, go on. Is that your question? I think Chooks has something to say, and I will just do a search so that we are all on the same page on the internet. So Chooks, you can come in and give your response while I do an internet search so that we have clarity on what's being asked. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Benedicta. I actually love the question that you asked. Now, what I'm saying is from my own understanding, because I was even, as you guys were talking, I was actually thinking as well. So from what I can understand here, the reason why we might have this switch is one organization that has employees. So if I'm an organization, I have many employees, yeah. Obviously, if everybody is using just one method, it might get jammed. So just like the lady that spoke second that said switch takes the packet and distributes it, yes, that's what it does. Now, in terms of wireless, if you are connected to the Wi-Fi, you know that when you switch on the Wi-Fi signal on your system or your mobile device, it will show you the Wi-Fi name, yeah, and then you click connect. Some instances you put a username and password and then you connect. So in that instance, this is what I'm just saying from my own understanding. In that instance, what I think happens is that Wi-Fi, because it already has your username and password, and it also has your MAC address, because your MAC address is unique to you. Two devices cannot have the same MAC address. MAC address is like your identifier. So I'm sure that Wi-Fi box, the MTN router or whatever, takes all that thing and is stored somewhere. So when you establish that connection, okay, you are connected to that device, and then you do your facebook.com. When it goes and it gets that information, because it already has your details, it has your MAC address, it knows that, okay, this person used this username and password to connect. Once it gets that information, with what it has your MAC address and all those things, it can be able to establish that connection and say, okay, this is the person that is initiating this request. And then it can then send it back. Now, if you're in your home network, if you're in your house, for example, obviously, in your house, let's say you have a big family, max 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think you don't need a switch. So a switch is basically there so that in case people from in a building, in an IT building, for example, 4 floors, floor 1 that are trying to connect, floor 2 that are trying to connect, floor 3 that, and each floor have like 50 or 60 people. Floor 1 are trying to connect, floor 2 that are trying to connect, floor 3 that are trying to connect, floor 4, obviously the traffic, whatever device you are going to use, if you are not segmenting your network properly, is going to get jammed. So what that switch will do is that, okay, oh, this person, D1 is Chooks, I'll plug D1 cable on the switch. D2, Benedicta, I'll plug D2 cable on the switch. From there, the traffic then passes through. Another thing that the switch can do in terms of troubleshooting. So let's say, for example, you are having issues. Oh, you are in a corporate environment. Everybody on your floor can browse, but you cannot browse. When the network guys come, what they do is that they'll tell you that what's your port number? Oh, you are D1. They'll start tracing the connection. They'll trace the connection from your system to the switch to ensure that everything is configured properly, such that there will not be any network challenge or any network issue. So that's what just came to my head. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I saw Emanuela's hand up. So was that clear? And I'm going to add as well to what Chooks just said. So with switches, like he mentioned, in an organization, we have different floors. It helps us manage our endpoints and network connection across the organizations. It's also used for troubleshooting, like he mentioned. If a particular person on a particular department is having issues, we can go straight to the switch that we've assigned them to, the port numbers that we've assigned them to identify what the issue is. And most organizations use switches also to differentiate amongst departments. So we may have the security team, we'll have them all up on a particular port number. We have the management team on a particular port number, and we have the software called Network Access Control, the likes of Force Scout, that we use to manage connectivity in our network. So you can also use that to attach policies to different departments. So for example, the management team on a particular switch, they won't have any restrictions because you don't want management complaining. But then for example, if we have the marketing team with our network access control solution, we're able to say, okay, anybody on this switch, restrict them from doing A, B, or C. So switches help us manage our users, our endpoints, and connectivity to the outside world, while the router, like we've all gotten the gist, enables that connectivity, internet connection. So is this better? I went to this website. I wanted to put it up for our understanding. So is that clear, or is there some other questions behind, what are you thinking? We can address that. Emanuela, you had a question. Your hand was up, rather.
Sorry, I didn't have a question. I actually had an addition which you've already spoken about. Just like you said, it's mostly for organizations that have large numbers, like, of people working there for differentiation, and also so it's easily located if there's an issue. That's what I wanted to say, and you already said that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, was that Abim? Is that clear? Are you fine with that
Yeah,
explanation?
it's clear.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can always go on YouTube to watch videos, see, they'll give you like a what's the word? A presentation of how things flow. But from giving you examples from our experiences, the tools that we've worked with, and that. So Chooks, maybe you want to give them an example of one of those events that we have with like network access control, to how we get calls from the service desk team and how we treat it. So this will give them like also another angle to how this OS model works.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give an example of where we used to work. So myself and Benedicta work together in GT. So while we were in GT here, we do get all this type of requests from the IT support team. So you can get a call and somebody will tell you that, a branch manager at Okbebi, for example, a GT branch in Okbebi, the person cannot connect to the environment, but everybody else on their floor can connect. So I'm just giving you an example. So in such instances, what we'll do, say, okay, what's the IP address of this person? They'll give you the IP address. What's the switch port number? So what we do we have a tool for Scouts is for network access control. So it helps to grant access so you can use it as a security tool. You can use it to stop people from having access to your environment, and you can use it to segment your network. So if I explain that for Scout, this is how I explain it. Since we are all cybersecurity guys, this is how I explain for Scout. Because one funny thing about Nigeria, sometimes I see some thread on Twitter where people are talking certain things and I just laugh. Banks invest a lot in security and they have the tools. You won't know until you try to do something funny. Let me paint this scenario in your head. You go to a branch, for example, you're having issues with your account and you go to a branch to go see a customer service rep. Then while you're there, because of the huge amount of people, you decide to take a seat and just rest. Okay, while you're waiting for your turn, you bring out your laptop. Oh, there's a network port here. There's even a network cable lying around. One end is already connected to the wall. Say, okay, since I'm waiting for these guys, let me just plug and maybe do something on the internet while I'm waiting. Once you take the other end of that cable and you plug it on your system, because of this network access control tool, this network access control, what it does is that it's going to put a block. So automatically it blocks you. You'll not be able to do anything. Reason being that the network access control is looking at, okay, I don't know this guy. This is a new device. I've not seen this device before. Remember, the way it identifies that your device is what? Is your MAC address. Because your MAC address is unique to you. It sees the MAC address of this PC and it says, okay, I do not know this guy. So it puts a block. It puts a block on that particular device. It will not allow it to go through. So in those instances, what happens is that if it's a legitimate person, maybe it's a staff member, a new staff member in the bank, those IT support guys, they reach out to us, the security team, and they say, okay, this guy is getting blocked. We'll get the IP address, we'll get the switch port number, and from that, our network access control tool, from the administration tab, we can see that particular device. And we can see if it's that our security solution that is blocking it. In instances where it's blocking it, if I've gotten proper justification that this person is actually a staff member or somebody that is authorized to do so, what we do is that we grant the person access. If we don't grant you that access, you will not be able to do anything. Now, back to the explanation of that, I just said I should give you guys this scenario. Back to the explanation of that switch. When the IT support guy comes and they say, okay, this person cannot browse, they give us the IP address and the switch port number. So once we check that, once we put that IP address and the switch port number on our solution, on our NAT solution, we will see that particular PC. And then from there, we can see if the device is getting a switch block. A switch block means that that person's PC has been blocked from the switch. Remember the explanation I gave? You're trying to browse, you send your request. So it goes from you to the switch and then from router to switch and then it goes out. Now, because there is a switch block, that you cannot do anything. Why? Because on that device that has that switch device, there has been a block there, not like a physical block, but the security solution has blocked you. And because that switch is is like tied to you, is peculiar to just you cannot do anything. That's why that person is getting blocked. So once you release that switch block, communication and everything begins to flow normal as it's supposed to flow within like the organization. So that's a better or a graphical explanation of a switch and how it works.
Okay, thank you. I hope this is not too much, but thanks for the questions. They're really brilliant questions, and they're opening our eyes to learning more and understanding how the network works. I also wanted to add to the network access control tool that policies are also set up on it. So before a user is allowed access to your network, it goes through, a set of policies. Okay, it helps identify your system type, which is you get an IP address assigned to you. It helps identify your system type, if it's a Windows or a Mac, your IP address. And then it also checks for one very important thing, if you're on the domain. So we have a team called, like you said, the IT support team. They manage domain administration. So before they give out, for example, people that work from home, any laptop or your physical computer in your office, they add it to the domain. For example, abc.com domain, and anybody on this domain can have access to the network. But if you're not on the domain, like you mentioned, someone came into the branch and plugged their PC, that PC is not on the domain, even though you have an IP address, you're not on the domain, hence that switch block. So this is where we get the IT support team calling, giving us something to help us troubleshoot. So if you're looking to go into cybersecurity, the field, you need these basics to troubleshoot your environment. These are the little things you can ask people that are having issues in the environment. Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. You just ask, okay, what's your IP address? Or what are you trying to do? You want to get an understanding of what the issue is to be able to provide them a solution. And don't worry, your workplace, nobody will be asking you what is presentation layer, what is session layer, or what is this or what is that. We already have security solution tools that make our job easier, and so that we can focus on, what we should be worried about. So we'll spend a lot of time on this. We're just going to briefly go through other things on the study guide, but before we do this, we'll open the floor for questions. So from your study sessions, are there any areas here that you would like us to address? Thank you, Chuk, so much for those explanations. We'll just hold on and see if they have any more questions from the domain of study. So please, you can unmute and ask your questions. Do you have any questions? I'm sure you were taking through the various network threats, the likes of worm, viruses, man-in-the-middle attack. Do you have any concerns? Okay, I'm gonna throw a question out. Can someone please explain to me what a virus is? What do you think a virus is? And how would you differentiate it from a worm? Okay, Abim, you can go on.
Okay, so I think a virus is a malicious software or program that attacks maybe an application or a system just to attack it. Let me just use that word. While a worm also does the same, but a worm has the ability to replicate itself across different computers. Am I correct?
Oh, that's fantastic. I was waiting for you to mention replication. That is very important to know about worms. Not like viruses don't spread, they do spread. But for example, if I have a USB device that is infected, if I give it to someone else, that's how it's transferred. So
I think Sorry, I think a virus needs a human factor to replicate itself.
To replicate.
Meanwhile, a worm does not. Is that?
That's correct. Yes, like I mentioned with the USB, or if you send the file like a Word document to someone else, once they open it, it takes action. Okay, can someone please explain what a denial of service attack is? And after explanation, Chooks can go on and add on to that. So please, who can tell us what a DDoS is? Not distributed denial of service attack. I am just asking of a DOS, but you can add on to what a distributed denial of service attack is. Anybody? I'll pick on someone. Defisayo, do you want to try? Fisayo, are you there?
Yes, yeah. Okay, I'll just say that I think the denial of service attack is like an attack meant to shut down a network, something like that, to make it inaccessible.
Okay. Have you heard of distributed denial of service attack as well?
Yes, I've heard of it too.
Okay. Chuk, can you please help us elaborate on these threats and how we can prevent them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Benedicta. I think Fisayo, yeah, I'm not sure I got the name, but I think it was Fisayo that I heard. I think you tried. You're actually correct. So a DOS is denial of service. So when they say something is denial of service, so a service that is running. So this is because what I do here, when it comes to all these security tips, sometimes I don't have to be technical. I just try to break the English down. Denial of service. Something is running and then it gets denied. So you have a service that is already running and then it gets denied. Now this is a type of attack that goes on in corporate environment. Not only corporate environment, even small and medium enterprises, as long as you have an online presence. This thing happens to you. So anything that will ensure that your services are not reachable to your customers, to your staff, to your vendors, to your contractors, that will deny service. That's what it does is. Now, you can be looking at it that, but how is this bad? How is this an attack? If you cannot access the service, some people might say if you cannot access the service, like that next time you try. Now imagine, for example, you're a bank customer and you're trying to access internet banking. You try it, it's not working. You try it, it's not working. If you try it for the past 2 weeks, it's not working. The first thought that comes to your head is that, is my money safe? People told me I should not open an account with this bank, but I did not listen. I still went ahead to go and open it. So what that denial of service does is that it ensures that services cannot be reached. You cannot access any service at all. So the implications of this organization is that it could lead to reputational damage. So I am a GT bank, for example. I am an Access bank, for example. My customers cannot access my platforms. The next thing is that they go on Twitter and you start seeing hashtags like GT, give me my money. GT, I've been trying to access GT for the past 3 months, have not been able to access it. I've been trying to access GT for the past 2 days, I've not been able to access it. You as an organization, it affects your reputation. Because then for those that are intending to open accounts with you, for those that are trying to do business with you, they'll be like, GT that nobody can access for the past 2 years. I'm sure when they started this currency thing, most of us, there were times where we tried accessing some of our banking applications and we're not able to access it. The reason, maybe there was a technical issue, but for some people that don't understand, you can look at it and say, okay, it's a denial of service. What that thing now does is that because it's no longer accessible, your customer starts complaining, your vendor starts complaining, and can lead to reputational damage. It could lead to financial loss because money you're supposed to make within that period, you'll not be able to make it as an organization. Now, distributed denial of service attack. Distributed, so it's not coming from one place. So denial is just one. Distributed denial of service attack is another one. So the aim of this one basically It's just to bring you down. So it's coming from different places. You know, you have your internet banking, for example. Customers are trying to access your internet banking. They log in, they log out. You see all this traffic. But then your internet banking that can, let's say, for example, I'm using examples here. Your internet banking can access maybe 10,000 requests at a particular time, just only 10,000. Then all of a sudden, something that you have said that can only accept 10,000, you are seeing 2 million requests in 1 second. Because the requests are too much. The requests are coming from everywhere. It's just too much. And it has the bandwidth that you set that, okay, I have a customer of 10,000. So I'm hoping that I'll be getting 10,000 requests every minute. And then you're getting 2 million requests every minute. Because it's distributed, it's coming from different places. This one brings the service down totally because the thing is just too much. The internet banking server cannot cope again. So it brings it down. Now to mitigate against this, there are ways you can mitigate against this. Number one is that you can use a cloud WAF. That is the web application firewall. So what this web application firewall does is that it helps you to manage when it sees all these millions of requests, because it implements machine learning as well. So machine learning basically is learning about your behavior. It's learning about, it has your historical data. So it knows that GT Bank, for example, for the past 10 years of GT Bank, they always have requests of 10,000 requests every 1 minute. And then it sees 2 million requests. So what it does is that the cloud WAF blocks all those type of requests. If the information is coming too much, it just blocks it, just to ensure that your service is up and running, because it does not want it to come down. Another way that you can mitigate against this is some people, what they do is that they host some of their sites with all these security vendors, sorry. So what the security vendors do is that once they start seeing this amount of requests, this huge amount of requests, they just cut it. They have a sandbox environment. So a sandbox environment is a playground, like a place whereby you can test things. So in that playground, they have their security settings and everything already implemented. So from that place, they begin to test, they begin to try to find out, okay, they start doing their analysis to try to check if this thing is a DDoS attack. If they do that, what most organizations always do is that they always increase their bandwidth size. So if they say, oh, it's only 10,000 customers that we should be expecting every 1 minute, they always make provisions that, okay, let's keep 1 million just by the size, just in case. So that's also another way of mitigating against it, but I wouldn't advise that. But most organizations, they do that. So that's what DDoS and DOS in a nutshell. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And to add to distributed denial of service attack, you need to be aware of these two things: zombies and zombies. So zombies are the machines, like he mentioned, the different machines that are sending an attack to its receiver. So you need to be aware of the zombies. We're running out of time again, but we'll just quickly round up in the next 5 minutes. I'm sure your study guide has gone through, the basics. And then in terms of information security, we have MOUs and SLs are documentations that we need to have in our environment to ensure that whenever we're going into an engagement with a service vendor, we are signing or ensuring each party's responsibilities. Okay, I also see here cloud environment, such as the SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS. I'm sure we're all aware of that. That's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and what software as a service.
Okay, thank you very much, Benedicta. So SaaS, software as a service. So all these things are new terms in cybersecurity. So all these things are picking pace with the cloud environment. And the reason why we have all these things is because organizations do not want to spend money. Nobody wants to be buying physical servers and all these things. So that's when all these things start coming out. You start hearing things like SaaS. So SaaS, software as a service. Instead of you just buying my software and just keeping it, what this SaaS is basically, okay, pay for what you are using. You want to use my software. I'm going to offer you this software. Once you finish using it, you pay. You don't need to install anything. Infrastructure as a service. You're using my infrastructure. You don't need to buy servers. You don't need to buy memory space. You don't need to buy storage, all these things. I give you a login. You use my infrastructure. Once you are done using my infrastructure, you pay. What's the other one? The other one is PaaS, yeah? Platform as a service. So it's basically, instead of you installing or downloading or putting anything in your environment, I'm going to host everything. I host the servers, I host everything. The responsibility is shared between me and you. We sign some documents, some memorandum of understanding, MOE documents. That's okay. I'm taking these steps to ensure that data is always protected, that your customers' information are not getting leaked, and then you don't have to worry about buying storage, infrastructure, software, and just keeping it there for it not to work. So that's the kind of. And most in terms of Nigeria now, I can speak for Nigeria because I'm in Nigeria. What most organizations are doing now is that they don't use on-prem tools anymore. So on-prem tools are on-prem tools, like tools that you have to go and rack something in your data center and then establish a connection from there to your environment. Instead, what they do is that they have this cloud environments. So they work with the likes of these big cloud guys, the likes of the Microsoft, Google, all of them. They now offer all these services. So even your security solutions, you don't need to be installing software and all those things again. What you do is that you just pay them money. They have a cloud infrastructure somewhere. They have their own data center. They have their own server. So from there, they allocate resource, a virtual environment to you. But that virtual environment is going to tie it to you and your organization. So you use whatever you want to use, and then you pay them at the end. And then you don't have to worry about storage and all those things. So that's a brief explanation of these things.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, can you see my screen? I'm trying to share, the cloud infrastructure. What can you see, please? Can you see my screen?
The on-premises infrastructure as a service, platform as a services and as a service, and software as a service as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the cloud environment like we have today, like he has explained, infrastructure as a service, platform, and software. ISC2CC, okay. And then you can see the dark blues and the light blues. So when you decide to sign up for any of these services, like the likes of AWS, Azure, you need to be aware of what you have access to. So, and what you have control of in your environment. Just a moment. Okay, so on the infrastructure environment, the provider has access to maintain from the networking down to virtualization, and then you as a customer, you can install whatever operating system you want in your environment. You have access to your data and the applications on it. And also on the platform, you choose whatever OS you want to run. For example, you go to AWS, I want a Linux or Windows. They take care of everything from the OS down to networking. You install your application and you have your data. And also you need to be, you're able to give access to users in your environment to access whatever they need to. But on the software end, they manage everything. This is where we see AWS basically. They manage everything. I don't know if this is correct. It's looking to me like it's not correct, but they manage everything from application down to networking. You just choose what you want and you use their environment. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because for incident managers, we need to know our responsibilities when it comes to cloud incident management, because a provider manages, for example, on the software end, is responsible for everything from application down to networking. When you have an incident, how do you go into that environment to get your data for investigation? So when we're adopting cloud, we need to ask certain questions and restrictions and responsibilities of the provider and you as a customer. If there's an incident, who is responsible for handling it? Are we going to get data? Is it your responsibility? Under what jurisdiction are we operating? So these are things that we need to be aware of. So we're going to, does anyone have any questions? You can drop it in the chat. And we can discuss that. I'll just briefly ask, we just have about 2 minutes to end. But before we end, I want to appreciate Jokes. Thank you very much for taking time out to explain to us the OSI model, the threats, and the network security cloud infrastructure. We really appreciate you. Thanks for doing this for our students. And when we pass, we will definitely let you know. We're preparing for our exams as well. So does anyone have any questions? I want to just see if anyone has their hand up.
Maybe
No.
we can ask the questions in the next class because we are practically out of time.
Yes. So the next class, I wanted to put it next Saturday, but it's going to be in 2 weeks' time. We're also going to get someone else to come in and talk on security operations. If you check your outline, that's the next thing we have to study. So please let's continue to study our modules. I don't know if the Slack channel still works. I will check. Ensure you've registered on the ISC2 platform for your course. We'll continue to have our study sessions. You can email me if you have any questions on registering for your exam, and I'll take it from there. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Chooks. Any last
Thank
words
you.
for us before we go?
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye everyone. Have a good weekend.
You as well. Bye, everyone.